what are the limitations of the existing systems when they go into a customer's home that would make this customer feel, this is all I get? I've got a main circuit panel, et cetera. Can you explain that a little bit for me?
Yeah, so normally in the past when we've installed systems with energy storage, prior to Lumin, kind of like we briefly mentioned before, the homeowner always had to have a backed up loads panel, and that they would have to choose what loads, out of their panel that they wanted to have. If the
so
grid
it's a permanent decision, semi-permanent.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it was always permanent. Now with the, with Lumin coming on board, it just gives the homeowners so much more choice, a lot more, autonomy to be able to kind of choose, what loads they want to have if the grid goes down, and the ability to, change that as time goes on is a really big pro.
Yeah, I'm going to just jump in as an aside that if you're listening to this and the basic functionality or fundamental argument of what Lumin is and why it exists is escaping you, we're going to take maybe a 30-second shot at that. But I would really encourage you to listen to the episode that we released on July 4th with Alex Bajanoff, because we go deep down the rabbit hole of why this product exists at all, and how it is satisfying a need in the market that's more than a felt need, and it actually is addressing where the evolution of our grid modernization is going, right? I would love to hear from a product development perspective, how do you conceptualize this need? And sort of addressing what Jason was talking about, right? The consumer is limited. They want resiliency. They want to integrate storage. Installers are a little bit uncertain about how to address that. There's a bit of if you've got a hammer, the guy with the hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So installers are barraged with, for the most part, vendors that see all the problems through the lens of their hammer, right? That being an inverter or a load controller or some other way to couple the storage with the home system. Now, Lumin comes in with this concept of controls management, really, like you said, thinking about commercial systems, helping business owners deal with demand response, deal with the inability and the inflexibility of shedding load or controlling their costs, realizing that this was actually the direction that homeowners were going to get pushed inevitably.
Yeah, no, it's definitely very close to my heart as product manager, and as Kevin mentioned, in the early days we were making a lot of sales calls and really hearing from the people, hearing from the market, excuse me, directly from them. What do you guys need? What are your pain points? We have this technology. Where's its best application? And that's exactly where we landed. Here we are today, talking with a customer, and it's a wonderful mutual relationship that we have. But really, it goes back to the founding of the company, when we've always kind of been ear to the ground, listening to the market, hearing what they're saying, and loud and clear we heard, it's really a hassle to have to install these protected loads panels. It's really such a hassle. Not only that, but just to have to explain to our customers what they're going to get, how it's going to work. You have to pick 6 loads. I'm sorry, you just put this big investment into solar and storage. Which 4 things do you want to back up? And that's a really disappointing conversation to have to go through with a customer. And so that's where we stepped in and said, hey, I think we can do something about this.
Yeah.
Right? I think we can help you here. And so here we are.
For the uninitiated, it's actually evolved the idea of a smart load control system really being held at the circuit breaker level, right? And again, we don't need, we can go a little bit down the rabbit hole if you guys want to geek out a bit on the technology. But John, I'm curious from your perspective, as the business owner hearing yet another vendor tell you we've got a great solution. When did it really click for you? And was it a customer that said, I've got this idea, or I want this thing, and you finally were able to see that the Lumin product would work? And why for you was it the right solution to present to a client?
Again, I think it came from the fact that since the beginning, people wanted their entire house backed up, and we consistently had to explain to them and talk them down. Well, that's not going to be maybe possible. You're going to have to pick the loads that you would consider critical. So what would happen though is, and we'd pick a set of loads that we knew we'd always be able to power, but then there'd be days or there'd be situations where the solar's making more energy than is required for those backup loads. So gosh, it would be nice if we could turn some other stuff on, or run the dishwasher or run the washing machine, but that wouldn't be possible because we had these fixed loads in this backup panel. So what it really came down to was listening to customers continually ask for the ability to back the whole house up.
Yeah.
Us continually saying, no, there's nothing that exists, and now a product comes along that says, hey, listen, you're going to get that flexibility.
Yeah. So I've heard a number of explanations of the Lumin product and how and why it's different, but maybe you guys could break it down for me at a basic level. How do you achieve whole home backup when in an environment where it has been really complicated before? And why isn't it, and is it not complicated now somehow with Lumin?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So I guess at a high level, and we'll try and keep it here, what we do is control at the circuit level large appliances in the home. So in an off-grid situation, what in the past has made you install a protected loads panel is the fact that you have large loads that are going to be either too much for your storage system to handle, or they're going to drain the battery way too quickly in the event of an outage, and the homeowner's going to be left with no juice left, right? So what we do is, again, at a really high level, basically just turn those large loads off whenever we detect a grid outage, so that by default, you're not going to waste your precious energy, you're not going to trip that battery's inverter, and then the flexibility comes into play during that outage. So if you think it's going to be a 20-minute outage, you might choose kind of the full throttle option, right? Just spend it all down, it's only 20 minutes. But if the utility comes out and says, hey, I'm sorry, it's going to be 4 days, then you may want to change your preferences and dial back a little bit to just the essentials.
Yeah, well, you're using these words like dial back, like there's actually a level of control. I presume there's some sort of an interface. It almost sounds like it gives the customer the ability to, in some way, manipulate their electricity pricing, as it were, right?
Yeah,
like
I mean,
how they're actually experiencing
exactly.
an outage, or how they're experiencing even surges in cost.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's very much the point. And it's our goal that eventually it would be totally seamless, so the customer doesn't even really have to know that the power's out, right? That's kind of the holy grail for us, and really what customers are hoping for. But in the meantime, yeah, we're trying to make it as flexible and easy to use as possible. So that user interface is fully responsive to a number of things, including grid outages.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the idea of whole home control is not something that is new, right? We talked about Nest and a number of other companies. Johnson Controls and Honeywell are famous as controls companies. It's not a new idea that customers want that type of control and that type of interface. It's typically been sort of the bastion of the rich and wealthy. So what I find really interesting is, and I remember this from our conversation with Alex, Kevin, is this idea that in some way the killer app, even though Lumin has the ability to compare and function at a core level simply at the home management system, when you bring in battery storage, it really adds a layer of complexity and control that is super interesting from a solar installer perspective, right? John, how does that help you in the marketplace now that you have a case study, right? You've got a project that's successful. How does it help you differentiate yourself as an installer in the marketplace?
Yes, actually, what we can do now is we can come in the door with a solution that is in line with the customer's expectations. And we can provide them an installation that gives them that flexibility, knowing that, hey, listen, we're not going to be able to run everything all the time, but when you're in a situation where you want to turn something on and you have the capacity and the storage to do it, you're going to be able to do that.
From an interface perspective, what sort of information does the client kind of have to know, or need to know, or want to know with regards to the system, right? Is this sort of a, because you look at Nest, and the research shows that most people kind of set and forget their thermostats, and Nest sort of addresses that through a little bit of AI. But how much do the clients, you find, are actually they're tinkering with it and trying to eke out savings now that they do have that control? Or is it still kind of a set it and forget it, and you guys on a software and hardware side are handling that for them?
Yeah, so our first install that we did, right outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, the homeowner, he's a very, very technical guy, so he loves the Lumin. But But basically, so what it allows you to do,